Once upon a time, there was a peaceful land called Dwarfland, where many dwarves lived happily under the rule of a kind king, Duroc. Duroc was wise and kind. He loved his people and cared for them. One day, a terrible giant named Gorgon came to Dwarfland. He was greedy and cruel. He wanted to take over the land and make the dwarves his slaves. He stomped in Dwarfland. He destroyed their houses and crops and ate their animals. The dwarves were terrified of Gorgon. They tried to fight back, but they were no match for his strength and size. They had to obey his orders and give him whatever he wanted. They lived in fear and misery. But there was one dwarf who was not afraid of Gorgon. His name was Boro, and he was the king's son's best friend. He was brave and adventurous. He also had a secret weapon, a sling-short that could shoot stones with great force and accuracy. Boro decided to use his sling-short to defeat Gorgon and free his people. He knew it was a dangerous mission, but he was willing to risk his life for Dwarfland. The very next day, Boro packed some food and water and took his slingshot with him, some stones, and left his home. He followed the giant's footprints until he reached his cave. He saw Gorgon snoring loudly in the cave. Boro waited patiently until Gorgon opened his mouth to yawn. Then he aimed his slingshot at his throat and shot a stone with all his might. The stone hit Gorgon's throat. Gorgon choked on the stone and woke up with a startle. He felt a sharp pain in his throat and tried to spit out the stone, but it was stuck. He coughed and gasped. But it did not help. He could not breathe or speak and eventually died. Boro quickly ran out of the cave and shouted to the other dwarves who were nearby, "Friends, I have defeated Gorgon. He can no longer harm us, and you are all free now." They cheered and clapped for Boro, who had saved them from the giant's tyranny. They also thanked him for his courage and cleverness. They lived happily ever after with their families and friends in Dwarfland. And so, Boro is known as the brave dwarf who fought with a giant to save his land. The moral of the story is, it is the brave people of a nation that make it mighty. Thank you for listening.